Saturday Social is powered by FIFA 22 with PlayStation.
Right, should we move on to what's trending? We know the
Absolutely.
rules by now. The guests get a minute to debate 5 of the biggest trends in the world of football on social media. So first up, Joseph, what you got for me?
Only one place to start, isn't there? It is with Chelsea Football Club after Roman Abramovich announced that he would be selling the club.
Yeah.
Now,
Big read for you, this one.
Big read for you, yeah. I mean,
What time are we off air?
this is Roman Abramovich's statement, so if you want to pause the TV and get right up close to read it, then you're absolutely welcome to. But the overall gist of this is that Roman Abramovich officially confirming after a couple of days of rumours that he would be selling the club. So we are about to see the end of the Roman Abramovich era, which kind of triggered a lot of different questions about players and stuff during that time. But we want to know, who was the best player of the Roman Abramovich era, which is a tough one because there are some legends in there. Let's come to you first, Carl. 60 seconds on the clock. Go.
Wow, very difficult question because, as you said, there's plenty of legends. Makelele, Drogba, you could put into the conversation. But I think if we... Ashley Cole as well, by the way, I think the best left-back that we've ever seen in the Premier League. I think that you've got to say John Terry or Frank Lampard. It's hard to disagree with Frank Lampard. I think that he is, of that era... an era-defining player. I've got to say that Frank Lampard is that one. I think he's one of the best midfielders we've ever seen. He could do everything. Goal scoring, look at what he managed to do there. So for me, Frank Lampard.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Kyle Walker, but also I'll give a bit of a different spin in terms of a signing in that era, and I'm going to go with Didier Drogba. I look at the big moments, and he wasn't a prolific goal scorer in terms of 20 goals plus every season, like an Aguero, like Kane, like these types of guys. But when it came to the big moments and needing to get it done in cup finals, Champions League
His
nights,
Wembley record was amazing.
Wembley record was unbelievable against the big 6 or big 4 at the time. He was there and at it, and he was unplayable. So I would probably say Didier Drogba.
Yeah, he is like the ultimate forward you didn't want to face him.
Yes.
Whenever Drogba was in a big game, you just thought, oh, no.
It's good that.
Park's only
I'd
centre
go.
half,
Is it good that? Because Abramovich era, it could be cover players that been signed or players, and I think I'd go Lampard as well. What a player. Chelsea's all-time top scorer, of course. Now, trend number 2. Speaking of Lampard, actually, this one involves, and this was from the Everton game against Man City. So have a look at this incident. In case you haven't seen it by now, a little bit of a reminder, because we're going to talk about this big incident in the game. This was in the 85th minute. Man City 1-0 up. And a big penalty shout on Rodri. So we're going to show you the replays.
Volleyball.
So the referee didn't give this for context, but it went to VAR and obviously was looked at for quite a considerable amount of time and still wasn't given. You can see what Frank Lampard thought of that. And, of course, you heard the noise at Goodison Park. Everyone thought that was a penalty. But what was interesting was this after the game. So the PGMOL, General Manager Mike Riley, made personal telephone calls to both Everton chairman Bill Kenwright and manager Frank Lampard to apologise following the decision by VAR not to award the penalty. Not something that we hear a lot of,
rare.
Joe, that. Yeah, not something we hear a lot of. And obviously a lot of us surprised that wasn't given as a penalty, hence the apology there. So our next trend is, should referees be made to apologise? 60 seconds on the clock. Flex, what do you think?
I think we're in an era of accountability. You see it in other sports, you see it in NFL, you see it in rugby, where there are clear on-field discussions explaining to the fans and the coaches and the players all in the moment exactly what's happening. Maybe that's a bit too extreme, but I would love to see accountability. We're almost getting this thing where we're dehumanising referees even more so by acting like they're not human beings with a mind of their own who can be held accountable. I actually think interviews with the referees after the game, even if they've had a good game, let's just hear from the refs. Let's start bringing them into the conversation. Managers have to do it if they've had a bad decision or a bad game. Players have to do it if they've had bad games, bad decisions. So I think bringing it in would be positive.
Kyle?
I think that referees should not be made to apologise if there is better communication. So again, yes, the accountability. I think that referees do themselves a disservice, and the PGMOL wouldn't have to apologise and make personal phone calls if there was an explanation as to why a decision was made. If we could hear the VAR discussions, as you've been saying there. So I think that they shouldn't be made to apologise if the communication was better. And can I just say, as an impartial broadcaster, that was handball. It definitely was handball, yeah.
Fair point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
I don't think there's any doubt there.
I would agree with you, Kyle.
Let's move on then to the next trend, and it's around Leeds United, who of course parted ways with their legendary head coach Marcelo Bielsa this week after that 6-game winless streak dragged them fully into the relegation mix. And he was replaced by American former RB Leipzig coach Jesse Marsch. Jesse Marsch obviously great reputation, but arrived with a really interesting press conference where he was talking around the stigma about United States coaches. If you haven't heard it already, give us a listen.
Yeah, I think there's probably a stigma. I'm not sure Ted Lasso helped. I haven't watched the show, but I get it. Like, people hate hearing the word soccer. They hate hearing, I mean, I've used the word football since I was a professional football player. I think more and more in the States, we're adapting to what the game here is in England and our connection with what this league is and what the culture of the sport is in this country. And all I can say is the only way I know how to do things is to go all in, to give everything I have, to believe in who I am, to believe in the people that I work with, and to try to maximize what we are every day. And I find if you can do that effectively, that you can be incredibly surprised with the human spirit and what you can achieve. So that sounds like Ted Lasso, I think, from what I've heard.
Do you know what? I really like him.
Absolutely.
Really like
It's
him.
funny, yeah.
Absolutely. And he wasn't there just dinging the bell, by the way. Just a couple of rogue dings.
Every time he said football,
Snuck in there, yeah, ding, ding, ding. There's just a couple of rogue ones
Yeah.
snuck through there. But the question we're going to ask you guys, because they are still in a perilous position, is will Jesse Marsch keep Leeds in the Premier League? 60 seconds. Let's have it.
Yes, I think they will. If it was any other season, it'd be a different answer to that question. But if you look at Burnley, they've been in the relegation zone since November. Watford, Norwich, you've got Everton in the conversation. Brentford, Newcastle. There's so many teams that are in this relegation fight, you would say, that I think that Leeds are a team that will just scrape and will just stay safe. I think it was a very brave and bold decision for them to get rid of Marcelo Bielsa and bring in a new head coach now. But I think that they will be safe and they'll be a Premier League team next season.
Yeah, I agree. But by default, though, because I think Brentford are they're sliding. I think Burnley or Watford will nick that spot, and I think that will make Everton/Burnley okay. I think Newcastle will be all right now. So I think he will go a little bit more reserved as well than Bielsa. I know you said it was a brave thing to do, but they had to. They had to give Bielsa the sack. They had to.
Yeah, it's going to be I think it's going to be still a very tough end of the season. Not an easy circumstance if you're Jesse Marsch to arrive in the Premier League with this situation happening, is it at all?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on it. Trend number 4, a lot of people talking about this incident, is about Kepa. So we can show you what happened. I'm sure you're all watching the game, glued to it. But Kepa was brought on as a 119th minute substitute, specifically for the penalty shootout. Failed to save any of the pens. Worth putting out, the penalties were pretty good, weren't they? But not only did he not save, he then missed the deciding penalty which led Liverpool to win the Carabao Cup final. Now, bit of context there. It is worth noting that Chelsea have done this before with Kepa, brought him on in the European Super Cup final, came on as a late sub, and Chelsea were victorious on pens. He also came on in previous rounds of the League Cup against Southampton and Aston Villa, and they were victorious. But also, the flip side of that is that Mendy was having an unbelievable game. And, of course, he did win the AFCON, didn't he?
Probably
Mendy,
splits
on
opinion,
penalties.
this, doesn't it?
So it really does. So although Kepa's got a better save percentage as a keeper from penalties, a lot of people said Mendy was having a great game. It completely split social media down the middle of this. I saw all arguments being held. So we want to get our guests' thoughts on this. Was it right to take off Mendy? Flex, what do you think?
I'm going to say no, it wasn't. I know it's worked for them in the past, but are we all in agreement that Mendy is top 3 keepers in the world right now? Arguably the best in the Prem, or some people arguably the best in the world? You keep your best players on the pitch.
Amazing year, hasn't he?
Amazing year.
Big finals.
Big finals, and he's come back and he's done brilliantly, and in the penalty shootout as well, in the AFCON as well, done well there. If you're saying to me, would you take off Ronaldo or Messi or one of the top best in their position in a penalty shootout because, I don't know, Wayne Rooney's on the bench? No, you're not. You're going to keep the best person for the job who's hot and warm. When Rashford came on in the Euros for penalties, cold, not warm, hasn't got a feel for the ball, people are like, this is why it shouldn't happen. And I think the same with the keeper. Mendy's got to be there if he's one of the best.
But if he would have scored it, if he would have won, it would have been the right decision. And I was in the Chelsea end, and they were confused as to why it was happening because Mendy was having an incredible game.
Were they? Most of the Chelsea fans
They didn't
wanted
understand,
it to,
but again, they've seen it come off. They've seen it pull off and be the right decision. So it's difficult. Was it the right decision to take him off? No, because he's having a great game. They didn't win. But if they would have, and Kepa would have actually scored it, they would have won. It would have been the right decision.
I think Liverpool players were licking the lips. Look how big Edouard Mendy is in the goal as well. Massive. He was on the same side as the pen that Van Dijk took and still didn't save it.
Hindsight's 2020.
We knew this was a good trend because it completely split social media and it split our guests.
It split us as well. I actually thought it was the right decision at the time. I thought it was the right decision.
Kepa didn't save a penalty though. He didn't save a single one.
We've got to move on to the next
show. We'll talk about this in the next show.
What's the next one?
The next one is about Jamie Vardy, because of course hit the ground running on his return, didn't he, scoring yet another goal. And in doing so, he became the highest scoring Premier League player after the age of 30. So since he turned 30, he scored 94 goals. So some of the names on that list that he's overtaken, by the way, Wright, Shearer, Lampard. It is some record, isn't it, for a man of his age? But that kind of got us thinking about players over the age of 30 and over. Who is the best over 30-year-old in the Premier League right now? We'll include players that are 30 in there as well.
People are always going to say Cristiano Ronaldo. Of course, he's one of the GOATs. He's one of the greatest of all time. But I actually would say Jamie Vardy for the story, for the fact he scored those 94 goals. He wasn't meant to be a player that comes to the Premier League and does that. If you look at his story, what he's managed to do, he's achieved everything. He's played in nearly every step of the football pyramid.
It's a brave call, Vardy.
I would just say for that story, and yes, people will go, of course, there's the Van Dijks, there's the Ronaldos, but I think Jamie Vardy, for the story, for everything that's around him, and the fact he's the highest goal scorer since turning 30, 94 goals, I think it's got to be him.
I appreciate Jamie Vardy. However, I look at someone who's at the top of their game and doing it with a Cuban cigar and a silk shirt on, mate, and that's Thiago Silva. Unbelievable. And look how old he actually is. And when I look at Thiago Silva, he's played across generations. He played in the same team as Ronaldinho. Like, that's how long he's been in the game. Do you know what I mean? And he's now still here doing it at the top level. And Vardy's fantastic, but he's not competing at the top level. And I'm going Thiago Silva.
There we go.
Yeah.
Two fairly decent shouts. A lot of
KDB
top players.
also.
Yeah, Salah's 29, incidentally.
Yeah,
Kante's another one.
Yeah, Kante's another one. Thiago Silva, Van Dijk. Loads of top players, aren't there?